Hi, this is Phil Potempa. Welcome to another edition of Notoriety. Each week we bring everything you want to make sure you mark on the calendar, what's certainly not to be missed, and everything happening in Northwest Indiana, Chicagoland, and beyond. And this, of course, is our broadcast version for these past 8 years, almost going on 9 of the print editions of all the columns and feature stories you'll read in my flagship Post-Tribune newspaper under the umbrella of Chicago Tribune Media. So everything is also always captured for those stories and feature columns at chicagotribune.com. We're just so glad that you're here to be a part of our conversation as we come to you live on this August the 18th, 2025. So you'll know exactly the timestamp of when this interview is being captured. It'll likely be broadcast or rebroadcast at other times of the day or in the evening. So now you know exactly how to plan your day and when this information is coming to you. We come to you live from our Strachan Van Til studios here at WJOB Jed TV, 12:30 a.m. right in Hammond, Indiana. We couldn't be here without all the generous underwriting and sponsorships over the years. The folks at Legacy Foundation are always so supportive. We thank the Indiana Arts Commission for their help over the years, and especially our friends at People's Bank that continue to contribute to make our weekly broadcast possible. Some of you are tuned in the traditional radio dial, others of you are streaming, so you have the added advantage of the cameras to see everything happening here at our studios, and that includes seeing our guests as well as my co-host today, Tony Panic, who's from right in the East Chicago area. He's going to help me with questions. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Hammond. Good morning, audience.
And welcome to our guest. Our guest on my sides we're going to see. First up, we have right next to me John Marovich. He's the author of 1 Minute After Sunrise. This is the book about the Standard Oil explosion that happened. That's a part of our history and timeline in the region. It includes so many interviews throughout, including the gentleman that he has right to his right joining us. Jim Mazel, he lived in Marktown at the time of this explosion. He's one of the folks chronicled that's on record that's included in this fantastic book. We'll start the conversation here, but you can be a part of the conversation as well and get your own copy of the book because there's an event coming up. Whiting Robertsdale is going to be hosting an event that'll be through their Historical Society. It is just one night only, 70th anniversary of what happened in this tragedy of the Standard Oil file. This event will happen on August the 26th. Admission is $10 a person or free entry for children, 12 and under, so it's a great opportunity to get students out as well. And being held at Calumet College, correct?
Right, correct.
All right, and the room number I think you even knew.
Room 200.
Room 200. Okay, so first let's start with finding out how long has this been a work in progress? And I know as somebody who's written a couple books in my day, it could take some time. So how long has it been?
It took probably, I'd say, over a year to interview the people that we interviewed. We interviewed 30 people on videotape, over 30, and we interviewed the 60 or 70 other people. So we interviewed a lot of people, and that took a lot of time. And then writing and putting everything together, of course, took another year or so, maybe a couple of years.
And your publisher for this book?
It's IA Universe is the publisher of it.
And it was actually published and released and in people's hands in what year? How long ago?
It's been about 10 years. We released it about 10 years ago.
That tells you when it's a book that's still in circulation, it's something that people clamor to find out. I was so pleased to be a part of the conversation. I wanted Tony to be here. As we talked about when we were getting started here, I do a long trek and a drive usually each day from our family farm that's about 4 counties away. So being somebody who grew up in Stark County in the middle of the cornfields, I'm not that familiar with the subject. So I'm going to ask Tony on the spot as somebody raised in Roxanne, neighborhood of East Chicago, something you knew about, heard about, or admittedly, you don't know a whole lot about the event either.
Well, I wasn't there, I got to say, but I do know about the event, of course. My grandpa, Tony Kretschmer, on my mom's side, worked at Standard Oil, so he was around there at the 55 mark, and my dad, of course, born in 55. But, yeah, you hear about the big Standard Oil fire, and it's hard to believe that it happened, actually. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know I know it was a raging fire, but, like, thinking about that happens in modern times, it's just amazing, and the stories, I mean, I got to read the book, of course, but I mean, the stories you probably gather, it's just
so let's get that synopsis. Let's go in the time machine on that tragedy and get us up to date exactly what unfolded. Because this, of course, will go much farther than just our reader, and it'll be streamed and social media, so there'll be people around the globe that have access. And if they want to find out the backstory, give us just the thumbnail of that.
Well, in the morning of August 27th, 1955, at 1 minute after sunrise, there was a massive explosion at the Standard Oil refinery in Whiting. The explosion was caused when a unit that was 260 feet tall and made of 2.5-inch thick steel exploded.
Hold that thought. This is being described so dramatically because you are the author of this, but the words are. I would love the producer, to accompany us with those just amazing photographs at the same time. For those of you who are streaming us and you're seeing this will definitely capture your attention. And those are on the radio. I can just say you're going to want to get the book to see these archival photos that show the amazing billowing towers of just black smoke that is rising up to the sky. Continue at that point now.
So when the unit exploded, it was called a hydroformer. And what it did, it converted gasoline into high-octane gas. Because back in 1955, we drove those big gas-guzzling cars.
Oh, yeah.
So we needed higher-octane gasoline. This unit was relatively new. It was just being brought up that day. Because it had been offline for a short period of time for routine maintenance. 13 men were working on it, and it just blew up. And it shattered into pieces. So there were tons of steel flying in the air. It was like a rain shower, except instead of water, we had steel falling down. At that time, there was a neighborhood right across the street from the refinery called Stiglitz Park. There were 180 houses, roughly, in Stiglitz Park. A lot of the steel landed in that neighborhood. One piece of steel absolutely crushed a grocery store.
This looks like some of the aftermath.
Yeah.
Here again, we're going to describe this for the folks on the radio. Wonderful archive photos that are just amazing to the eye to see of the aftermath. I'm going to have Joey go back one more slide. I want you to describe that scene. It looks like I can see what almost appear to be the existing silos or tanks that we think of today. Maybe not. Maybe they've been replaced over the years. But if our producer can go back one more slide, are those the same ones that we drive past right now, those big round? Or no, these are different ones.
Those might be the ones that we do drive past
They look
now.
like them.
So
right?
when you're describing that neighborhood, and I'm sorry for the folks on the radio, again, we're looking at a fantastic, just amazing photo that is just a huge tree trunk of clouds. Where was that Stigler neighborhood on that photo?
Stiglitz Park was, it's actually was at the corner of 129th and Indianapolis Boulevard. It was on the west side of Indianapolis Boulevard, both north and south of 129th. So it was just south of those tanks that you saw. And it's now, that whole area is covered with tanks now.
It is, okay.
The Stiglitz Park neighborhood is gone.
And is it owned now by our BPM Co. folks
Yes.
now?
Standard Oil bought it out, and they bought the owners out after the explosion, and it built these storage tanks there.
So, Tony, as somebody who's 35 years old, had you ever heard of that neighborhood even? Or no? I've
I
never
recall
heard
the
of it.
name, but don't know a lot about it. I'll
Yeah.
admit. Yeah,
It's a part
but
of it,
basically from that, it was pretty much leveled, right? I mean,
It was
yeah.
pretty much
Decimated, right?
A lot of it was houses knocked off their foundations, totally destroyed in that sense. They had to be totally rebuilt. A lot of them survived. Some of the houses were crushed by steel, by flying pieces of steel. Miraculously, nobody in that neighborhood got killed.
That's amazing.
However, there was one person killed, a little boy sleeping in his bed, which is in the Goose Island neighborhood, which is just a little bit west of Stiglitz Park.
And Goose Island would take us over the state line?
No, it
Still-
doesn't
still
go
in
quite that
Indiana?
far. It goes, yes. It goes pretty much where Calumet College is now. That's the northern end of Goose Island. And it extends down to about 129th Street.
So besides the devastation, imagine, of all this house destruction and the thoughts of rebuilding or what to do with that landscape, we also have to think of the impurities that had to be spread when, just by the nature of what this industry is, it's creating fuel, it's chemicals. That would be a concern. A neighborhood I am very, very familiar with that I'm very fond of, near and dear to, is Marktown. This is where our next friend on the couch that is joining us today. Yep. So, Jim, you were living as a young boy probably at the time there, young man, when this happened, correct?
Yes, I was 6 years old.
And you're part of the interview of this book. And just a reminder, the book we're talking about is Standard Oil Explosion. It is the the anniversary coming up. So this is the book that we're describing, as well as the event that's coming up as well. It includes interviews of people that remember firsthand, one of which is Jim. So I'm curious how you recount this.
Well, first of all, the Marktown section is in East Chicago. And while the Stiglitz Park abutted BP, or Standard Oil at the time, on the west side, we were abutting Standard Oil on the east side, on the East Chicago side, off of 129th Street. I lived on Broad Street, which faced the the oil refinery. And when the blast occurred, my bedroom, which was the corner room right by that side, the window came in on the lower half of my bed, and the whole family story is why was my what was spared, why all the glass was shattered. And my parents always said, well, it was a warm night, and they often saw me with my legs right-angled, kind of hanging off of the bed. And so I was spared any injury.
Otherwise, the force of the impact of it's not just a window, falling, blasting, and shards of glass that would have been on that mattress, but your legs were not laying as they would have been flat. They probably were dangling half off if it was a warm evening.
That's pretty much the.
And at what age were you around?
6 years old.
Oh, 6 years old.
But in that moment when that happens, I mean, what's the sound like? I mean, it's got to be. You probably thought the world was ending.
Well, that part I'm not 100% sure. My dad always said he dove off the foot of his bed, and thought the house had exploded. Immediately thought the something exploded in the house, and it wasn't until as he went down the hallway he saw the whole sky.
It's terrifying, I'm sure. Yeah.
So for both of you gentlemen, from you capturing the interviews and you being a part of it at 6 years old, not a lot of recollection, but certainly mom and dad telling you, given the year, everybody just in the middle of the night is stepping outside and looking around. What was the first thought for those neighborhoods?
Well, in our case, it was bundling me up. I kind of remember the hustle and bustle, and we're getting out of there. And we had an Indiana Harbor, an aunt lived there, and that's where we went. And so it was to get out of the danger zone. However, it wasn't until, just a short time after, people started to come back. And it was probably the next day or after that we were back in Marktown to watch, as John, you hadn't mentioned, the fact that this fire, Inferno, raged for
8 days.
8 days.
So
8 days.
I'm amazed, and those of you that are tuning in also must be on the edge of your seat. We're talking about the incidents and anniversary for 70 years, and it's John Moravic's new book, 1 Minute After Sunrise, the story of the Standard Oil refinery fire that happened in 1955. I've been grumbling all this summer just about the light haze of smoke from Canadian wildfire. Was God or somebody with us with the blessing of, well, it's not really a blessing, but did he move that smoke? Was the smoke moving over the lake? Or no, our region was smoky for 8 days. Any recollection or any thoughts of that?
Yeah, there was smoke, of course. Well, first of all, you asked about how things felt.
Yes.
There were some people who actually thought it was an earthquake, and that included people who lived in Michigan. They could feel the earth move. President Ford, future President Gerald Ford, was on a weekend visit to his cabin along the Michigan coast. He came out of his house because the advice always was, if you thought it was an earthquake, get out of the house.
Right.
So everyone got out of their houses in this community in Michigan because they thought it was an earthquake. There were people who thought it was the end of the world. There were some people who got on their hands and knees and immediately prayed because they thought this was it. There were others who thought, remember, this is 1955. There are others who thought that the Russians had bombed us, and this was a nuclear attack on the United States. So that people were going crazy. The smoke rose in the air, while the flames were as tall at one point as the Hancock Building in Chicago. That's how tall the flames were. The smoke was about 6 times higher.
That's insane.
And it blew everywhere. I mean, but basically the smoke didn't turn out to be a problem. The bigger problem turned out to be all the oil that spilled out of the tanks that were destroyed by the flying steel. There were 70 storage tanks that had a capacity of 1 million gallons that were hit by steel, and the oil had to go somewhere. It either burned up or it started flowing on the ground. So we had rivers of oil that went into the sewer system of Whiting. So people were afraid to light a match. Some of it flowed into the Indiana Harbor Ship Canal, and they're afraid it was going to catch on fire. We had later big globs of oil floating on Lake Michigan, and a lot of ducks and birds were covered with oil as far as the dunes area. So the environmental impact was pretty severe. People in Chicago were getting dust and other debris from the as far as the Shedd Aquarium, that area.
Mm-hmm. It again, if you're hearing all this unfold, it's not a movie being described. It's what happened in our own backyard, Northwest Indiana, and the region. We're talking about the Standard Oil incredible, tragic fire happened in 1955. It's the 70th anniversary mark. The folks at the Whiting Robertsdale Historical Society have got an event coming up. They'll have the author you've been hearing talk with us throughout our morning here. John will be there as a part of it. There'll be other folks that had firsthand recollections, such as Jim's also sharing some couch time this morning with us. That event comes up on August the 26th. It'll be at Calumet College. Admission, a simple $10. Children that are 12 and under will be admitted for free. It'll be a lecture. It'll be a book signing. You'll have books there. In case there also are folks listening, as I mentioned, around the country and say, I just want to get the book. I can't come all the way out there. Amazon, local bookstores, Barnes & Noble, where can we get the book?
It's available online. It's also available through the Historical Society, Whiting Robertsdale Historical Society. You could go online at wrhistoricalsociety.com, and you could get it there as well.
And it might vary in price. It's a beautiful paperback, glossy cover, but right around what price tag?
Around $14.
$14. It's, again, and a great publisher that you have behind you. Did they knock on your door? I mean, I've been asked once in a while to write some historical books from things that don't exist along here anymore, and I haven't taken up the invitation. Or no, you pitched this to the publisher,
yes.
Or it was fully written, and you just needed somebody now to get it bound.
I gave it to the publisher, and yeah, it was the kind of book, I had not written a book before. Mm-hmm. So I contacted a few publishers, and fortunately was able to work something out with iUniverse.
And by trade, your background and career is in what?
Journalism.
Journalism.
I worked in television news for a long time, and I worked in radio, and I worked in newspapers for a short time.
Name drop a few of those, because, I'm a true journalist with ink in my blood. What are some of those affiliations you had over the decades?
Well, I worked mostly in television, and I worked from small markets like Joplin, Missouri, Evansville, Indiana. I worked in Cleveland, Ohio. And I worked on a few projects at Channel 2 in Chicago with the Investigative News Unit.
And today you call where home?
Still, I'm back to Robertsdale.
Back to Robertsdale.
Family up here, so back living here.
Did you already have a circle and connection with Jim, or no? There was a story written somewhere, and he then contacted you, or through social media, or no? You gentlemen knew each other already.
Well, I started going to the Whiting Robertsdale meetings, monthly meetings. Very entertaining. Highly recommend it to anybody that has either connections in the region or just wants interesting stories, because their monthly meetings are always have wonderful presentations. And so I had been attending those meetings.
I know Gail does a great job with the Historical Society, of course, having events like this one coming up.
Give Gail a shout out. Gail
Casalco. Gail, of course, a long-standing pillar in the region as far as the community goes. And, of course, I'm a part of Pierogi Fest. She came up with the characters for that. So got to give Gail a shout out. But even to this very day, she just puts on these events, such as hosting you.
She is the foundation for that.
I do have to ask you, too. This was published 10 years ago, you said, right? 2015? Right. So that's about 60 years then past the fire. And I got to read the book, of course, but gathering interviews such as Jim here, did you ever get anybody that was working there at the time? I mean, that's 60 years out at that point. I mean, did you find anybody working there at the time
to
interview?
We talked to several people who worked there at the time.
Yeah. I'm sure their point of view is just unbelievable.
Oh, yes. Yeah, their firsthand experience at it. And we talked with a National Guardsman who got called to duty and had to protect the area, the Stiglitz Park area, because hundreds of people had to leave their homes.
Yeah, sure.
To evacuate, and so the National Guard was there to protect things. We talked with Ron Pluniak. He was a boy, he was 8 years old at the time, and his brother was 3. His brother was Ricky Pluniak. They lived in the Goose Island neighborhood. And a piece of steel from that hydroformer flew and hit the neighboring house, bounced off the roof of that house, and crashed into their bedroom. It instantly killed the 3-year-old boy, Ricky Pluniak. Ron Pluniak lost his leg. The piece of pipe that came through their bedroom where they were sleeping chopped off his leg. We talked with Ron, who has since passed away. And that's a fortunate thing. We did these interviews 10 years ago plus now.
Captured them.
And we captured all those people, a lot of whom are no longer with us.
Sure. In preparation for what, again, is the 70th anniversary. I know there's somebody who would like to talk to you, John. I believe, is there a caller on the line still? No? Then if you were listening to this and wanted to chime in or share your own perspective, please call back.
219-845-1100.
Now, here comes the question. Tony's familiar with this, the way I phrased it. There always has to be at least one hard-hitting Larry King, Joan Rivers question. In putting this book together, how were the folks at BP Standard? Were they like, oh, confetti in the air, or why are you rehashing this history? We want this to slip away. Or no, they own it. They realize it's a chapter in the history, even if it is one that is not favorable. And they also shared what they could to help you, or no, phone calls were not returned.
Well, all of this happened well before BP owned the refinery, and the folks at BP were perfectly fine with everything. They offered no objections. They raised no problems, no concerns. So no, we had absolutely no problems with BP. They've been fine about it.
Good, perfect. When Tony brought up about interviewing some of the employees, they might be like, well, I want to be interviewed, but I like my pension better, so I don't want to say anything on the record. And that's understandable. As a journalist, we both know this. There are sometimes that people don't feel comfortable or they're fearful or worried. But, boy, you have taken the record. How many pages total in this book?
More about 200, I'd say.
It looks like it. And
a lot of footnotes.
And I'm guessing that our friend Gail and the rest of the team, it's more than 235, including the index with names to find pages, assisted with some of that great archive photos, or did you go to newspapers?
No, we primarily got them from our archives. And it was a team of us who worked on the interviews. Gail's husband, Chuck Salco, was one of the ones who worked on the interviews. Frank Vargo played a significant role in getting the interviews lined up and conducting some of the interviews. I did the writing. I did the interviews as well as the writing. So it was a team of us, though, that gathered all the information.
And I'm curious, Jim, are you part of just a very small, select group now where it is rare for you to come across somebody else that said, I lived in one of those neighborhoods, too, as the years go on? Or you'd be surprised there's still quite a few residents that recall and were a part of that, or no, you're one of the last of the few that's still...
Well, I know that for this interview, I called one of my cousins who was about 10 years older, and I picked out his brain and so forth. And but I had not had an occasion. I'm looking forward to this event to make those connections.
Yeah,
and
they should draw folks out.
Right, and I really am happy to be here to encourage people to attend this event.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that you young people out there, if you have a parent or grandparent and you want to give them something, take them to this event, take them to the Historical Society monthly meetings. They will be very entertained, and you will see them light up as memories start to flow. And anybody from the region, I think, would probably
a great
be
invitation.
Touched by this.
Because if you were age 6 at the time, if I could ask your age today?
Well, 76.
76. And again, this book was captured, produced, bound about a decade ago. Were there any folks, John, that they were really kind of up there when it came to talk to me, when you had to find them, and their recollections were okay, but a little hazy because they, at that point, were in their 80s or 90s. Some of the older folks are, no, this is something that is etched and embedded in their brain forever once it happens.
No, when whoever we talked with, particularly those who were older than Jim was at the time, but old enough to really experience it, they said that in their lifetimes, they remembered Pearl Harbor and they remember the explosion of 1955. Those two things were etched in their brains, and they would remember them forever.
Had you ever been on WJOB with Jim Deedlow in the past, since the book has been around for 10 years? Or no, this is the first time in our studio here?
Yeah, I've been on before, Gail and I were on, actually, talked about World War I anniversary.
Okay.
That we both did several articles on that for the Whiting-Robertsdale Historical Society website. So we were on for that.
Well, please, both of you, come back anytime. This will still be in print. We'll get a story and get the word out there so that folks can start planning to be a part of this amazing event. It's the 70th anniversary of Standard Oil Fire. August the 26th is when it's going to be. Admission $10. The book will be there. Our author will be there. There will be first-hand testimony of what it was like, such as our friend here, that is Jim, that will talk about it. Jim, you live where now? What town are you in?
Actually, I live Knickerbocker, right across the
Okay,
street.
You walked
here.
over here.
So,
today.
yes,
You're not too far.
Yes.
So most of all of you, we hope that you'll be a part of the conversation. We thank you for being a part of this conversation. Please come back anytime. It was a pleasure. Tony, thank you for co-hosting.
Yeah, pleasure. You guys are keeping the history alive of our region. It's a tragic incident in our region's history, but it's good to tell those stories. I mean, these people have stories to tell, and you guys are doing it.
And
so.
we have a newly opened museum in Whiting-Robertsdale.
I still got to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
very
so
beautiful.
people ought to come there to look at it because this is one of the things captured in that museum. Whiting's got a great history.
It sure does.
Deep history, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you probably already know at the end here, part of the Whiting history now is Tony Panic as the latest Mr. Pierogi. So
Yeah,
we're somebody who's also
3
part of
years
the
running
timeline of the
here,
history
so.
that is Whiting, Indiana. And my thanks today also for Luke Miller and the Glass Booth helping produce along with Joe and all of you for being a part of our conversation. I'm your host, Phil Potempa for Of Notoriety. We hope you'll join us again. And if it's a rebroadcast, we hope that you enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, or wherever your path might take you.